The words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. "Can you leave? Your face is ruining everyone's appetite." Jessa said it with the kind of casual cruelty that only comes from years of practice. She didn't even look at me when she said it, just kept cutting her prime rib with surgical precision while my mother-in-law nodded approvingly from across the mahogany table. I sat there for exactly 3 seconds, fork halfway to my mouth, trying to process what had just happened. The dining room fell silent except for the grandfather clock ticking in the corner and the soft clink of silverware against china. Mrs. Lennox's house always felt like a museum. Everything pristine, everything judged, everything designed to make you feel inadequate. "Excuse me?" I managed to say, setting down my fork. Jessa finally looked at me, her green eyes cold as winter glass. "You heard me, Jared. You've been sulking all evening, and frankly, it's affecting everyone's mood. Maybe you should go home and work through whatever this is." The thing was, I hadn't been sulking. I'd been quiet, sure, but that's because every conversation at these family dinners felt like navigating a minefield. One wrong word, and suddenly I was the blue-collar husband who wasn't good enough for their precious daughter. I worked construction management, made decent money, paid my share of everything. But in this house, I might as well have been a janitor. "Jess is right," Mrs. Lennox chimed in, dabbing her lips with a cloth napkin that probably cost more than my work boots. "You do seem rather agitated tonight." I looked around the table. Jessa's sister, Amanda, was studying her wine glass like it held the secrets of the universe. Her husband, Brad, was scrolling through his phone, probably checking stock prices. Nobody was going to defend me. Nobody ever did. That's when the doorbell rang. "Oh, that must be Owen," Jessa said, brightening immediately. "I invited him to join us for dessert." Owen, her ex-boyfriend from college. The golden boy real estate developer who drove a Tesla and wore suits that cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. The guy she'd dated for 3 years before we met. The one she still talked about like he was some kind of lost treasure. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Not fear, exactly. More like recognition. Like when you're driving and you see the other car running the red light, and you know you're about to get hit, and there's nothing you can do but brace for impact. "You invited Owen?" I asked. "Is that a problem?" Jessa's voice had that edge to it, the one that meant I was about to be painted as the unreasonable one, no matter what I said. The front door opened before I could answer. Mrs. Lennox must have given him a key because Owen Voss walked into that dining room like he owned the place, tall, perfectly groomed, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my truck. His smile was the kind that sold million-dollar properties and closed deals with a handshake. "Sorry I'm late," he said, and his voice had that smooth confidence that came from never having to worry about money or approval, or whether your wife respected you. Traffic was brutal coming from the downtown office. He kissed Mrs. Lennox on the cheek like he was still part of the family, hugged Amanda, shook hands with Brad. Then he turned to Jessa, and I watched my wife light up like she'd been plugged into an electrical socket. "Owen, you look amazing," she said, standing to give him a hug that lasted exactly 3 seconds too long. Finally, he turned to me, extended his hand with that practiced smile. "Jared, good to see you again." I looked at his hand, looked at my wife, who was practically glowing, looked at my mother-in-law, who was beaming like Owen was the son she'd always wanted, looked at the table full of people who had just watched my wife tell me my face was ruining their appetite, and not one of them had said a word in my defense. I stood up, pushed my chair back from the table, walked to the entryway where I'd left my jacket. "Jared," Jessa called after me, "where are you going?" I pulled on my jacket, checked my pockets for my wallet and phone. My keys were still on the table next to my unfinished dinner, but I left them there. Let her explain that to everyone. "Home," I said. "Wouldn't want to ruin dessert, too?" I walked out without another word. Behind me, I could hear Jessa making excuses, probably telling everyone I was going through a difficult phase or dealing with stress at work. Something to explain away the fact that her husband had just been publicly humiliated and had chosen not to stick around for more. The November air was sharp against my face as I walked to my truck. I sat in the driver's seat for a moment, engine off, just breathing. Through the dining room window, I could see them all settling back into their chairs. Owen was sitting in my spot now, and everyone was laughing at something he'd said. That's when I made the decision that would change everything. I pulled out my phone and opened the Notes app, started typing a list of things I needed to do, not emotional things, not stupid things, practical things, strategic things, the kind of methodical planning that had made me good at my job, even if nobody in that house thought construction management required any intelligence. First item on the list, gather evidence. Second item, choose the right moment. Third item, make sure it counted. I started the truck and drove home to our empty house. Jessa would probably stay at her mother's for hours, basking in Owen's attention and everyone's sympathy for having such a moody husband. That gave me time to work. Our home office was in the spare bedroom, and Jessa had always been careless about leaving her laptop open. She trusted me, or maybe she just didn't think I was smart enough to put the pieces together. Either way, her email was still logged in, and her phone automatically backed up to the shared cloud account. What I found there made everything crystal clear. Hotel reservations dating back 6 months. Always the same place, always the same pattern. Tuesday afternoons when she claimed to be showing properties to difficult clients. Text messages that started professional and gradually became something else entirely. Photos that definitely weren't meant for client presentations, but the real prize was the lease agreement. A luxury apartment downtown signed 3 weeks ago. Joint tenants, Jessa Solis and Owen Voss. Move-in date, December 1st. Just 2 weeks away. I printed everything. Screenshots, email chains, financial records showing payments from our joint account. Hotel bills, restaurant receipts, even a jewelry store purchase I'd never seen her wear. The paper trail was extensive and damning and absolutely, completely real. Then I found something that made my hands shake with anger. A group text between Jessa, her sister Amanda, and her best friend Sandra from work. Dated last week. Jessa: I can't stand another family dinner with him sulking in the corner. Amanda: so don't invite him. Mom won't mind. Sandra: better yet, make it so uncomfortable he leaves on his own, then you're the victim. Jessa: Owen's coming to dessert? That should do it. Amanda: perfect. Mom loves Owen anyway. Sandra: just remember to act surprised when he shows up, like it was spontaneous. They had planned it. The whole thing had been orchestrated to humiliate me, to make me look like the problem, to justify whatever they were planning to do next. The invitation for Owen wasn't spontaneous. My wife telling me my face ruined their appetite wasn't a moment of frustration. It was a calculated move in a game I didn't even know we were playing. I sat back in my desk chair and laughed. Not because anything was funny, but because the alternative was putting my fist through the wall, and that wouldn't accomplish anything except proving their point about me being unstable. Instead, I opened a new document and started typing. A letter that was going to change everything. By the time I finished printing and organizing everything, it was almost midnight. I could hear Jessa's car in the driveway, her key in the front door. She was humming something as she came inside, probably still riding the high of her successful evening. Jared, she called, are you still awake? In here, I called back from the office. She appeared in the doorway, still wearing the black dress she'd chosen for dinner. Still beautiful. Still the woman I'd fallen in love with 5 years ago. But now I could see the calculation behind her smile, the way she was already preparing her next move. We need to talk about tonight, she said, sitting on the edge of the desk. I know you're upset, but you can't just storm out like that. It's embarrassing. Is it? I asked. Of course it is. Everyone was asking what was wrong with you after you left. I had to make excuses. What kind of excuses? She waved her hand dismissively. Just that you've been stressed at work, dealing with some difficult projects. Owen actually said he understood completely. He's been under a lot of pressure with his new development downtown. The luxury condos on 5th Street? Exactly. He's been working 18-hour days trying to get the financing sorted out. It's a massive project. I nodded like I was impressed, like I cared about Owen's business success, like I didn't know that he'd been spending Tuesday afternoons in hotel rooms with my wife instead of working 18-hour days. That sounds challenging, I said. It is, but that's what separates successful people from everyone else, the willingness to do whatever it takes. Whatever it takes, including sleeping with married women, apparently. You're right, I said. I should probably apologize for tonight. Jessa's face softened. She reached over and touched my shoulder. I'm glad you understand. I know I was harsh, but sometimes you need to hear difficult truths. We both want what's best for our marriage, right? Absolutely, I said. In fact, I've been thinking about some changes we should make. What kind of changes? Nothing dramatic, just some practical things. Financial planning, maybe updating our insurance policies, making sure we're both protected. She looked relieved. Probably thought I was talking about life insurance or retirement planning, boring husband stuff that she could ignore while she planned her exit strategy. That sounds very responsible, she said. We can talk about it tomorrow. I'm exhausted. She kissed the top of my head and headed for the bedroom. I waited until I heard the shower running, then gathered up all my printed documents and put them in a large manila envelope. Added a brief letter I'd written explaining exactly what everything meant and how long it had been going on. Then I sealed it up and wrote Mrs. Eleanor Lennox on the front. The 24-hour courier service cost me $60, but it was worth every penny. The driver would pick up the package at 6 a.m. and deliver it to my mother-in-law's house by 8 a.m., right around the time she was having her morning coffee and reading the newspaper. I set my alarm for 5:45 and went to bed. Jessa was already asleep, curled up on her side of the mattress like nothing had happened, like she hadn't spent the evening humiliating me in front of her family and planning her escape with her ex-boyfriend. I lay there in the dark, listening to her breathe, and felt something cold and sharp crystallizing in my chest. Not anger, exactly. Something more focused than that. Something more useful. Tomorrow was going to be very interesting. My phone started ringing at 8:23 a.m. I was already awake, sitting in the kitchen with my coffee, watching Jessa rush around getting ready for work. She had a big presentation today, something about a commercial property development that could make or break her quarterly numbers. She'd been stressed about it all week, which explained why she'd been even more irritable than usual. The phone rang 4 times before she noticed it. "Aren't you going to answer that?" she asked, checking her reflection in the hallway mirror. "Not my phone," I said, taking another sip of coffee. She frowned and pulled her phone out of her purse. The screen showed Mom in big letters. Jessa's face brightened. She loved her morning check-ins with Mrs. Lennox, especially after successful dinner parties. "Hi, Mom," she answered, putting the phone on speaker while she applied lipstick. "How are you feeling this morning? Last night was lovely, wasn't it?" The silence on the other end lasted exactly long enough for Jessa's smile to start fading. "Jessa." Mrs. Lennox's voice was different, flat, cold. "We need to talk." "Of course. What's wrong? You sound upset." "I received a package this morning. A courier delivery. From Jared." Jessa's eyes snapped to mine. I kept my expression neutral, like I had no idea what her mother was talking about. "A package? What kind of package?" "The kind that explains why my daughter has been lying to me for 6 months." The lipstick tube slipped out of Jessa's hand and clattered onto the hardwood floor. Her face went pale, then flushed red, then pale again. "Mom, I don't know what you're talking about." "Hotel receipts, Jessa. Text messages. A lease agreement with Owen's name on it. Pictures that I certainly hope weren't taken in my house." Jessa's mouth opened and closed like she was trying to speak underwater. She looked at me with something approaching panic, but I just shrugged and went back to my coffee. "Mom, listen to me. Whatever Jared told you, whatever he's trying to make you believe, he didn't tell me anything, sweetheart. He showed me bank statements, email printouts, your own words, in your own messages, talking about how much you missed Owen and how trapped you felt in your marriage." Mrs. Lennox's voice was getting sharper with each word. "Did you really think I was stupid enough not to notice? The way you lit up when he walked in last night? The way you've been asking about him for months? I thought you were just being nostalgic, but apparently you were planning." "It's not what it looks like," Jessa said desperately. "I can explain everything." "Can you explain why you signed a lease using money from your joint account? Can you explain why you've been meeting him at the Marriott downtown every Tuesday for the past 6 months? Can you explain why you told your sister that you were going to make last night so uncomfortable that Jared would leave on his own?" That last one hit like a physical blow. Jessa actually staggered backward, reaching for the wall to steady herself. "He showed you my private messages?" "He showed me everything, dear, including the part where you and Sandra planned exactly how to humiliate him at dinner, how to make him look unstable so you could justify whatever you're planning to do next." I had to admire Mrs. Lennox. For all her faults, she was nobody's fool. She'd raised 2 daughters in a world where appearances mattered more than anything, and she could spot manipulation from a mile away, even when it was coming from her own child. "Mom, please, let me come over. Let me explain." "Oh, you're going to explain, but not just to me. I've already called Amanda and your father. Owen's wife deserves to know what her husband has been doing, don't you think? I have her number somewhere." "No!" Jessa shouted into the phone. "Don't call Chloe, please. This isn't her fault." "You're absolutely right. It's not her fault at all, which is why she deserves to know the truth." The line went quiet. I could hear Mrs. Lennox breathing, probably trying to decide how much more damage she wanted to inflict on her own daughter. "I'm disappointed in you, Jessa. More disappointed than I've ever been in my life. But I'm not surprised. You always wanted what you couldn't have, and you never cared who got hurt in the process. Mom, don't. Just don't. Figure out what you're going to do about your marriage, and figure it out fast, because this mess you've created isn't going away." The line went silent. Jessa stood there holding her phone, staring at the blank screen like it might offer some kind of salvation. Then she turned to me. "You bastard," she said quietly. "Good morning to you too," I replied. "How could you do this? How could you go behind my back and—" "Behind your back?" I interrupted. Like signing a lease with your ex-boyfriend behind my back? Like spending 6 months in hotel rooms behind my back? Like planning to humiliate me at dinner behind my back? That's different. How is it different? She opened her mouth to answer, then closed it again. Because there wasn't an answer. Not one that made any sense. You violated my privacy, she said finally. Your privacy? We're married, Jessa. We have a joint bank account that you've been using to pay for hotel rooms. We have a shared cloud account that automatically backs up your messages. We have a mortgage together on this house that you were apparently planning to abandon without telling me. I wasn't abandoning anything. I was trying to figure things out. By moving in with Owen? It's complicated. No, it's really not. You wanted to have your cake and eat it too. Keep me around to pay half the bills while you played house with your ex-boyfriend. The only complicated part was figuring out how to make it look like my fault when everything fell apart. She sat down hard on the couch, put her head in her hands. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. What do you want? She asked without looking up. I want honesty. For once in the last 6 months, I want you to tell me the truth. Fine. Yes, I've been seeing Owen. Yes, we signed a lease together. Yes, I was planning to leave you. When? After the holidays. I didn't want to ruin Christmas. I laughed. Actually laughed. How considerate of you. Don't be sarcastic. This is hard enough. Hard for who? You've been planning this for months. You've had time to prepare, time to set up your new life, time to coordinate with Owen and figure out your exit strategy. I'm the one who found out about it by accident. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. How was it supposed to happen? Were you going to sit me down after New Year's and explain that you'd found someone better? Were you going to pretend it was a recent development? Or were you just going to disappear one day and leave me to figure it out on my own? She didn't answer, which was an answer in itself. My phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at it and smiled. Your mother works fast, I said. What do you mean? I showed her the message. It was from a number I didn't recognize, but the content was clear enough. This is Chloe Voss. I think we should talk. Jessa's face went white. Oh, God. Owen's wife seems like a reasonable person. I'm sure she'll handle this maturely. You don't understand. Chloe is... She's not going to just let this go. She's going to make Owen's life miserable. Good. Jared, please. You've made your point. Everyone knows now. Can't we try to work this out like adults? I looked at my wife. Really looked at her. Still beautiful. Still the woman I'd married 5 years ago. But sitting there begging me to protect her from the consequences of her own choices, I realized I didn't recognize her anymore. Maybe I never had. You want to work this out? I asked. Yes, if we can. Okay, here's what's going to happen. You're going to call Owen and tell him the lease is canceled. You're going to close whatever credit cards you opened without telling me. You're going to give me complete access to all your accounts, all your passwords, all your communications, and you're going to explain to everyone, your mother, your sister, your friends, that this was entirely your choice and your mistake. That's not fair. Fair? You think any of this has been fair to me? I mean the part about humiliating myself publicly. Why can't we just handle this privately? Because you didn't handle it privately. You involved your whole family in planning my humiliation. You made this public the moment you decided to make me look like the problem. She was quiet for a long time, staring at her hands. And if I don't agree to your terms? Then you can move in with Owen today, and we can let the lawyers sort out the rest. You'd really do that? You'd really throw away 5 years of marriage? I'm not the one throwing it away, Jessa. I'm just deciding whether I want to help you pick up the pieces. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Chloe Voss. Can you meet me for coffee this morning? I have some things Owen doesn't know I know. I showed the message to Jessa. Her face crumpled. She's going to destroy him, she whispered. Probably. Doesn't that bother you? Should it? He's a good person, Jared. You just what? Fell into bed by accident? Signed a lease together by mistake? Planned to leave your respective spouses by coincidence? It's not that simple. It never is, when you're the one making the choices. It's only simple when you're the one dealing with the consequences. I stood up and grabbed my jacket. I'm going to meet with Chloe. When I get back, I want an answer. Either we do this my way, or we don't do it at all. Where are you going to meet her? Does it matter? I want to know. The coffee shop on 5th Street, right across from Owen's new development project. The irony wasn't lost on either of us. Jessa closed her eyes like she was in physical pain. "This is really happening, isn't it?" she said. "It started happening 6 months ago. I'm just catching up." I left her sitting on the couch, still in her work clothes, probably trying to figure out how to salvage her presentation while her entire life fell apart around her. The drive to 5th Street took 15 minutes, long enough for me to think about what I was going to say to Owen's wife and what she might want to say to me, long enough to realize that this was just the beginning. Jessa had made her choices. Now it was time for everyone else to make theirs. Chloe Voss was nothing like I'd expected. I'd seen her at a few social events over the years, charity galas, business dinners, the kind of networking functions where Owen showed up to glad-hand potential clients. She'd always seemed like the perfect real estate wife, polished, quiet, supportive without being pushy, the kind of woman who could make small talk with anyone and remember everyone's names. But sitting across from me in the coffee shop, she looked like someone who'd been planning a war. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, sliding a thick manila folder across the table. "I wasn't sure you'd want to talk." "Your husband is sleeping with my wife. I figure that gives us some common ground." She smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. "More than you know." I opened the folder and immediately understood why she'd wanted to meet in person. Bank statements, credit card bills, hotel receipts, restaurant charges, but not just from the last 6 months. This went back almost 2 years. 2 years? I asked. At least, probably longer. I started getting suspicious when he began working late every Tuesday, always with the same excuse about difficult clients. Owen's never worked past 6 o'clock in his life unless there was money involved. I flipped through page after page of evidence. Expensive dinners, weekend trips to cities where Owen claimed to be attending real estate conferences, jewelry purchases that never made it home. "This necklace," I said, pointing to a receipt from last Christmas. $5,000. I never saw it. When I asked him about expensive gifts, he said he'd donated to charity instead. More tax efficient. "And you believed him?" "I wanted to believe him. There's a difference." She was right. I'd wanted to believe Jessa's explanations, too. The late meetings, the weekend work sessions, the new clothes she claimed were necessary for client presentations. It's amazing how much you can rationalize when you're trying to save your marriage. "When did you know for sure?" I asked. 3 months ago, I hired a private investigator." She pulled out another folder, this one filled with photographs. Owen and Jessa entering the Marriott downtown, Owen and Jessa having lunch at restaurants across the city, Owen and Jessa looking at apartments together, holding hands like teenagers. "Professional grade surveillance," she said. "Cost me $8,000, but it was worth every penny." "Why didn't you confront him?" "Because I wanted to know everything first. How long it had been going on, how serious it was, whether there were others. Turns out your wife wasn't his first affair, just his most recent. That hit me like a punch to the gut." "There were others?" "At least 3 that I can prove. Always the same pattern. Married women, usually clients or business associates. Always someone with something to lose if it became public." Jesus. Owen likes the thrill of it. The secrecy, the risk, the power dynamic. He gets bored easily, so he moves on every year or 2. But Jessa was different. Different how? She was willing to leave you. The others wanted to keep their marriages and have Owen on the side. Jessa actually signed a lease with him. I thought about that, about what it meant that my wife had been willing to blow up both our lives for a man who treated adultery like a hobby. "So what's your plan?" I asked. Chloe's smile got sharper. "Scorched earth." "Meaning?" "Meaning Owen thinks he's untouchable because his affairs have always been with women who couldn't afford to make waves. But this time is different. This time I have documentation of everything, and I don't care who gets hurt in the process." She pulled out a legal document, divorce papers already filed. "I'm taking half of everything, the house, the business, the investment properties, the retirement accounts, all of it." "Can you do that?" "Oregon is a no-fault state, but adultery still matters when it comes to asset division, especially when one spouse has been using marital funds to support the affair. Owen spent almost $30,000 on your wife over the past 2 years. That's going to be very expensive for him." I whistled low. $30,000, more than I made in 6 months. "But that's not the best part," Chloe continued. "There's more?" "Owen's new development project, the luxury condos on 5th Street, he's been using our joint accounts to fund it. Technically, I own half of everything he's built." And I'm going to sell my half to his biggest competitor, someone who's been trying to get a foothold in downtown development for years. The implications hit me immediately. Owen would lose control of his own project, probably lose money, definitely lose face in the real estate community. "That's brutal," I said. "He earned it." I looked through the photographs again, my wife and her lover, captured in dozens of intimate moments I'd never suspected, laughing over dinner, kissing in parking lots, looking at apartments like they were planning a future together. "What do you want from me?" I asked. "Cooperation. Owen doesn't know that I know about any of this. As far as he's concerned, I'm the oblivious wife who trusts him completely. I want to keep it that way until the divorce is final." "How long will that take?" 6 weeks if he doesn't contest it, longer if he tries to fight. "And you think I can help keep him distracted?" "I think your wife can. If she believes there's still a chance to salvage their relationship, she'll keep Owen focused on managing you instead of paying attention to what I'm doing." It was clever, ruthlessly clever, used Jessa's desperation to keep Owen from noticing that his own wife was systematically destroying his life. "What makes you think Jessa will go along with that?" "Because she doesn't have any other choice. Her mother knows everything now. Her family knows. Her friends are going to find out. The only person offering her a way forward is Owen. But Owen's about to lose everything. She doesn't know that yet." I sat back in my chair, trying to process the scope of what Chloe was proposing. It wasn't just revenge, it was strategic warfare, designed to inflict maximum damage while giving the targets false hope right up until the end. "You're scary," I said. "I'm motivated. There's a difference." "What happens to Jessa when Owen's world falls apart?" "That's up to you. You could take her back if you wanted to. Help her pick up the pieces. And if I don't want to, then she'll have to figure it out on her own. Either way, she'll learn that actions have consequences." I thought about Jessa sitting on our couch this morning, begging me not to let Chloe call Owen's wife. The irony was perfect. She'd been worried about the wrong thing entirely. "How do I know you won't turn on me too?" I asked. "Because you're not the one who betrayed me. You're just collateral damage, like I was." "Fair enough. So you'll help?" I looked at the photographs one more time. My wife's face, radiant with happiness I hadn't seen in years. Not because of anything I'd done or failed to do, but because she was living a secret life that made her feel alive again. "What do you need me to do?" "Go home. Tell Jessa you're willing to work things out. Give her hope that she can have both. Keep you as a backup plan while she waits for Owen to leave me." "And then?" "Then we wait. Owen will get overconfident, thinking he's managed to keep everyone happy. He'll make mistakes, get sloppy, and when he does, we'll be ready." "How will I know when it's time?" "I'll call you, probably in about 2 weeks." "And then?" "Then we finish this." I closed the folder and slid it back across the table. "Keep me posted." "I will." I stood to leave, then turned back. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why didn't you just leave him quietly? Take your half and disappear?" Chloe's expression went cold. "Because he humiliated me. For years. Made me feel like I was crazy for suspecting what everyone else probably knew. Made me question my own judgment, my own worth. And now? Now he gets to find out what that feels like." I drove home thinking about humiliation, about the dinner last night and the way Jessa had dismissed me in front of her family, about the months of lies and excuses and gaslighting, about the lease agreement with Owen's name on it, signed while I was working 60-hour weeks to pay our mortgage. By the time I pulled into our driveway, I'd made my decision. Jessa was waiting for me in the kitchen, still wearing her work clothes, but looking like she'd been crying. "How did it go?" she asked. "Better than expected." "What does that mean?" "It means Chloe Voss is a reasonable person who wants to handle this maturely." Jessa's face flooded with relief. "Really? She's not going to make trouble?" "She's hurt, obviously. But she understands that these things happen. She's more concerned about protecting her marriage than punishing anyone." It wasn't technically a lie. Chloe was very concerned about protecting her interests, just not in the way Jessa would interpret it. "So what happens now?" Jessa asked. "Now we figure out if our marriage is worth saving." "Do you think it is?" I looked at my wife, really looked at her. Still beautiful, still the woman I'd fallen in love with, still someone who'd been planning to abandon me for months while letting me pay half the bills. "I don't know," I said, "but I'm willing to try if you are." The relief on her face was almost painful to watch. "I am," she said. "I really am." "Good. Then call Owen and tell him the lease is off, at least until we figure things out." "I can't do that. We already put down deposits, signed contracts." "Jessa." Okay, I'll call him." She pulled out her phone and dialed. I listened to her explain to Owen that she needed more time, that her family situation was complicated, that maybe they'd moved too fast. Owen didn't sound happy, but he agreed to put everything on hold. When she hung up, she looked at me hopefully. "What else?" she asked. "Nothing else. For now." "That's it?" "That's it." She hugged me then, and for a moment it felt almost normal, like we were just a married couple working through a rough patch, instead of two people playing an increasingly complex game of deception. I love you, she whispered against my shoulder. I know, I said. And I did know. She loved me the way she loved everything else in her life, when it was convenient, when it didn't require sacrifice, when it made her feel good about herself. The question was whether that would be enough to save her when everything fell apart. Based on what I'd learned from Chloe, I seriously doubted it. But that was Jessa's problem to solve. I had other things to worry about. 2 weeks passed like a slow-motion car wreck. Jessa threw herself into saving our marriage with the same intensity she brought to her biggest real estate deals. Date nights, long conversations, surprise lunches at my job site. She was attentive, affectionate, and seemingly committed to making things work. She was also still texting Owen every day. I knew because I'd installed monitoring software on our home router. Not illegal, it was our shared internet connection, and I had every right to see what traffic was passing through it, but definitely sneaky. The kind of thing the old me would have felt guilty about. The new me found it educational. Owen was getting impatient. His messages started professional. Updates about the lease, questions about timing, reassurances that he understood her position. But as the days passed, they became more demanding, more possessive. I can't keep putting my life on hold while you figure things out. Chloe is starting to ask questions about why I'm working late so much. We had a plan, Jessa. I need to know if you're still committed to it. Jessa's responses were masterful. Apologetic, but not submissive. Loving, but not desperate. She kept him hooked while buying herself time to see which way the wind would blow. I just need a few more weeks to handle the family situation. You know how I feel about you. That hasn't changed. I can't make this decision under pressure. You understand that, right? It was like watching a chess match where both players thought they were winning. Meanwhile, I was getting regular updates from Chloe. Brief, professional text messages that sounded like business communications but carried much more weight. Meeting with attorneys went well. Documentation is solid. Financial analysis complete. Projections look favorable. Timeline remains on track. Will advise of any changes. She was dismantling Owen's life with surgical precision, and he had no idea it was happening. The first crack in his facade came on a Thursday afternoon. The sun was high and unforgiving at the job site. Dust hanging in the air as my crew clustered around a set of blueprints spread across the hood of a truck. Voices overlapped, measurements were debated, and the steady rhythm of work should have kept my mind anchored. Instead, when my phone buzzed in my pocket, I already knew who it would be. I stepped away from the noise, boots crunching over gravel, and answered. Jessa, calling from work. Can you talk? She asked. She sounded shaken, her voice tight in a way that made the word work feel like a flimsy excuse rather than a location. What's wrong? Owen just called me. He's really upset about something. He wants to meet tonight. What kind of upset? I don't know. He was talking about lawyers and paperwork and how someone was trying to destroy him. He sounded paranoid. I felt a cold smile spread across my face, slow and involuntary. Chloe was making her move. Did he say who was trying to destroy him? He thinks it might be a business competitor, someone who wants to take over his development project. That's terrible, I said, carefully layering sympathy into my tone. He wants me to meet him at our usual place, the hotel downtown. Are you going to go? There was a long pause, stretched thin by distance and uncertainty. This was the moment of truth. Was Jessa really committed to saving our marriage? Or was she just buying time until she could figure out a better exit strategy? I leaned against a stack of lumber and waited. I don't know, she said finally. Part of me thinks I should. He sounded really desperate, and I feel responsible for some of his stress. How are you responsible? Because I've been giving him mixed signals, making him think we still had a future together when I'm trying to work things out with you. So tell him the truth. What truth? That you've made your choice. That you want to stay married. Another long pause, heavier than the first. I could picture her staring at the floor of her office, weighing words like they might tip the balance of her life. Is that what I've done? She asked. I don't know, Jessa, have you? I think so. Yes, I think I have. But she didn't sound convinced. She sounded like someone trying to convince herself as much as me, testing the words to see if they would hold. Then tell Owen that, I said. Be honest with him. Let him move on with his life. You're right, that's what I should do. But not over the phone. He deserves better than that. I should tell him in person. And there it was, the rationalization, the carefully polished excuse to see him one more time, to keep her options open just a little longer while telling herself it was the moral choice. Okay, I said. Do what you think is right. You're not angry? Should I be? I don't know. Most husbands would be. I'm not most husbands. That was certainly true. Most husbands wouldn't be coordinating with the other man's wife to destroy his life. Most husbands wouldn't be monitoring their wife's communications while pretending to trust her. Most husbands wouldn't be playing a game this complicated. But most husbands hadn't been humiliated at a family dinner while their wife's ex-boyfriend took their seat at the table. "I'll call you afterward," Jessa said. "Let you know how it went." "Take your time. These conversations are important." After she hung up, I immediately texted Chloe. "Owen called Jessa. Sounds like he's getting suspicious. They're meeting tonight." Her response came back within minutes. "Perfect timing. Divorce papers get served tomorrow morning." I stared at that message for a long time, the screen dimming and lighting again as my thumb shifted. Tomorrow morning, Owen's world would officially start falling apart. Tonight would be his last few hours of thinking he was in control of anything, and Jessa would be there to witness it. I got home around 6, showered, and made dinner for 1. The house felt too quiet, every sound amplified by absence. Jessa had texted that she'd be late, probably wouldn't be hungry when she got back. She was meeting Owen at 7, which meant she'd be gone for hours. I ate standing at the counter, barely tasting anything. At 8:30, my phone rang, unknown number. "Hello? Jared, this is Owen Voss." I almost dropped the phone. Owen had never called me directly. We barely spoke at social events, exchanging polite nods at best. "Owen, what can I do for you?" "I think we need to talk." "About what?" "About our wives." The phrasing was interesting. Our wives. Like we were business partners instead of the husband and the lover. "I'm listening." "Not over the phone? Can you meet me somewhere?" "Where?" "The parking lot behind Murphy's Bar. You know the place?" I knew it. Dive bar in a sketchy part of town, the kind of place where people went when they didn't want to be seen. "When?" "Now." "Owen, I'm not sure this is a good idea." "Please. I think there are things you need to know." Against my better judgment, I agreed. Murphy's was only 15 minutes away, and my curiosity was stronger than my caution. Owen was already there when I arrived, leaning against his Tesla in the shadows behind the bar. He looked terrible. Rumpled suit, 5 o'clock shadow, the kind of desperate energy that comes from too much stress and not enough sleep. "Thanks for coming," he said. "What's this about?" "Chloe filed for divorce." I tried to look surprised. "When?" "This morning. Had me served at my office in front of my entire staff." "I'm sorry. That must have been humiliating." "She knows about Jessa." "How?" "I don't know. Private investigator, maybe. She has photographs, bank records, hotel receipts, everything." "That's comprehensive." "She's going to take half of everything I own, including my development project." "Can she do that?" "Apparently. Her lawyer says adultery affects asset division, especially when marital funds were used to support the affair." I nodded sympathetically. "What does this mean for you and Jessa?" "That's what I wanted to talk to you about." "I'm not sure I understand." Owen ran his hands through his hair. "Look, I know this is awkward, but we're both in impossible situations here. Your wife has been having an affair with me. My wife is trying to destroy my life because of it." "Okay. I think we can help each other." "How?" "Chloe wants to hurt me. The best way to do that is to make sure Jessa chooses you over me. If I lose the woman and the money, I lose everything." I stared at him. "You want me to fight for my own wife?" "I want you to make it easy for her to choose you. Give her a reason to stay married that doesn't involve guilt or obligation. Such as? I don't know. Whatever she needs, security, attention, forgiveness. The point is, if she goes back to you completely, Chloe loses some of her leverage." "I'm not following the logic." "Chloe's lawyer is arguing that I was planning to leave my marriage for Jessa. That this wasn't just an affair, it was a relationship that threatened both our marriages. But if Jessa chooses to stay with you, it proves that I was never serious about leaving Chloe." It was twisted logic, but I could see how it might work in court. If Jessa publicly recommitted to our marriage, it would undermine Chloe's argument that Owen had been planning to abandon his family. "What's in it for me?" I asked. "You get your wife back. Completely. No more divided loyalties. No more wondering if she's going to leave you for someone else." "And you?" "I get to keep half my assets instead of losing everything." "What about Jessa? What does she get out of this arrangement?" Owen's face darkened. "She gets to avoid the consequences of her choices." There was real bitterness in his voice. For the first time, I realized that Owen was angry at Jessa too. She'd promised him a future together, then backed out when things got complicated. From his perspective, she'd used him and then abandoned him when he needed her most. "Have you talked to her about this?" I asked. "I tried. Tonight, She says she wants to work things out with you, but I don't think she's being honest. I think she's scared and trying to find the safest option. And you think I'm the safest option? For her? Absolutely. You're stable, reliable, forgiving. I'm about to lose everything I own, and probably my reputation along with it. He was right, of course. From a purely practical standpoint, I was the better choice. The question was whether Jessa was making decisions based on practicality or emotion. What exactly are you asking me to do? Fight for her. Make her feel wanted and valued and secure. Give her reasons to choose you that have nothing to do with guilt or obligation. And if she still chooses you, then we'll both lose everything and Chloe will win. I looked at Owen, really looked at him. Expensive suit, luxury car, the kind of confidence that came from years of success and privilege. But underneath all that, he was just a man who'd made some very bad choices and was now trying to find a way out of the consequences. Just like Jessa. I'll think about it, I said. Don't think too long. Chloe's moving fast, and I don't have much time to salvage this situation. I understand. Do you? Because if this goes badly, it's not just my life that gets destroyed. Jessa's going to be collateral damage. Your marriage is going to be collateral damage. The only person who wins is Chloe. He was trying to make me see Chloe as the villain in this story, the vengeful wife who was punishing everyone for her husband's mistakes. It might have worked if I didn't know what I knew. I'll be in touch, I said. Owen nodded and got back in his car. I watched him drive away, then pulled out my phone and texted Chloe. Owen knows about the divorce. He's getting desperate. Her response came back immediately. Good. Phase 2 starts tomorrow. I drove home wondering what Phase 2 would look like and whether Jessa would survive it. When I got to the house, she was already there, sitting on the couch with a glass of wine and red eyes that suggested she'd been crying. How did it go? I asked. Terrible. Owen's life is falling apart, and he thinks it's somehow my fault. Is it? I don't know. Maybe. I made him promises I couldn't keep. What kind of promises? That I would leave you, that we would build a life together, that I was ready to give up everything for him. And now? Now I realize I was living in a fantasy. The reality is messier and scarier and more complicated than I thought. She looked up at me with those green eyes that had made me fall in love with her 5 years ago. I want to stay married, Jared. Not because it's safe or convenient, but because I still love you. Because I think we can build something real together. Even after everything that's happened? Especially after everything that's happened. I know what I'm choosing now. I know what I'm giving up. It was a pretty speech. Heartfelt, sincere, exactly what I would have wanted to hear a month ago. The problem was, I didn't believe her. Not because she was lying, exactly. I think she meant every word in that moment. But Jessa had a history of meaning things in the moment and changing her mind when circumstances shifted. What did you tell Owen? That I couldn't see him anymore. That I was committed to working things out with you. How did he take it? Not well. He said I was making a mistake. That I was choosing security over happiness. What do you think? I think happiness is more complicated than he wants to admit. I sat down next to her on the couch. Jessa, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest. Okay. If Owen's situation was different, if he wasn't getting divorced, if his business wasn't falling apart, would you still be choosing me? She was quiet for a long time, long enough that I knew the answer before she said it. I don't know, she said finally, and I hate that I don't know. But you're choosing me anyway. Yes? Why? Because you're here. Because you're willing to fight for us. Because you're the kind of man who builds things instead of just taking them. It wasn't the answer I'd hoped for, but it was honest. Jessa was choosing me because I was the better option, not because I was what she really wanted. I can live with that, I said. Can you? I think so. She curled up against me on the couch, and we sat there in silence while the television played something neither of us was watching. Outside, it started to rain, the kind of steady Pacific Northwest drizzle that could last for days. Tomorrow, Phase 2 would begin, and everything would get more complicated. But tonight, for just a few hours, we could pretend we were just a married couple working through their problems like normal people, even if we both knew better. Phase 2 began at 7:23 a.m. with a phone call that woke both of us from deep sleep. Jessa answered without checking the caller ID. Hello? Owen's voice was loud enough that I could hear it through the phone, even though I was pretending to be asleep. They froze my accounts. What? Owen, slow down. What accounts? All of them. Business, personal, everything. Chloe got a court order. I can't access any of my money. Jessa sat up in bed, instantly alert. How is that legal? Something about protecting marital assets during divorce proceedings. Her lawyer convinced a judge that I might try to hide money offshore. Can you fight it? Not without a lawyer, and I can't pay a lawyer because they froze my accounts. It's a perfect trap. I could hear the panic in Owen's voice, even through the phone. Chloe wasn't just taking half of everything. She was making sure Owen couldn't defend himself while she did it. What do you need? Jessa asked. I need to borrow money, enough to hire legal representation and keep my business running until this gets sorted out. How much? 50,000, maybe more. Jessa's face went pale. We didn't have $50,000 in liquid assets. Our savings account had maybe $8,000, and that was money we'd been setting aside for a new roof. Owen, I can't. Please. I know it's a lot, but this is temporary. Once I get access to my accounts again, I can pay you back with interest. It's not about the money. It's about what this looks like. I just told you last night that I couldn't see you anymore. This isn't about our relationship. This is about basic human decency. Chloe is trying to destroy me, and she's using the legal system to do it. Jessa looked at me. I kept my eyes closed, but I could feel her watching me, trying to decide what to do. I need to think about it, she said finally. There's no time to think. Every day my accounts are frozen. I'm losing money. My contractors can't get paid. My investors are getting nervous. My reputation is being destroyed. Owen, I thought you cared about me. I do care about you, but I also have a marriage to think about. Your marriage? To the man who violated your privacy and humiliated you in front of your family? I felt my jaw clench, but I kept my breathing steady. Owen was playing dirty now, trying to remind Jessa of her anger at me. That's not fair, Jessa said quietly. Isn't it? He went through your personal messages, Jessa. He printed out private communications and sent them to your mother. What kind of man does that? The kind of man whose wife was planning to leave him without telling him. So you admit you were planning to leave him? I was confused. I made mistakes. And now you're making another one by staying with him. There was a long silence. I could practically hear Jessa's internal struggle, the war between her guilt about Owen and her commitment to our marriage. I can't lend you $50,000, she said finally. Then lend me what you can. 10,000, 5,000, anything. Owen, stop. Please, I'm begging you. And he was. I could hear it in his voice, the desperation of a man watching his entire life collapse in real time. I'll talk to Jared, Jessa said. Maybe we can figure something out. Thank you, that's all I'm asking. After she hung up, we lay in bed for a few minutes without speaking. I kept my eyes closed, waiting to see what she would say. I know you're awake, she said finally. Hard to sleep through that. What do you think? I think Owen's in serious trouble. Should we help him? I opened my eyes and looked at her. Do you want to help him? I don't know. Part of me feels responsible for his situation. How are you responsible? If I hadn't gotten involved with him, Chloe never would have found out about the affairs. She wouldn't be going after him like this. Jessa, Owen was cheating on his wife long before he met you. This was always going to catch up with him eventually. Maybe, but it caught up with him now because of me. Or it caught up with him now because his wife got tired of being lied to. She was quiet for a moment. You really don't think we should help? I think lending money to your ex-lover while you're trying to save your marriage sends a pretty clear message about your priorities. What message? That you're still more concerned about Owen's welfare than our relationship. That's not true. Isn't it? You told him you couldn't see him anymore, but the moment he's in trouble, you're ready to mortgage our future to bail him out. It's not about bailing him out. It's about basic compassion. Compassion for the man you were planning to leave me for. I wasn't... She stopped herself. Okay, yes. I was planning to leave you for him, but that doesn't mean I want to see him destroyed. Even if helping him destroys us? How would helping him destroy us? Because we don't have $50,000, Jessa. We don't have $10,000. If we want to help Owen, we'd have to take out a loan against the house or liquidate our retirement accounts. And for what? So he can hire lawyers to fight his wife's divorce? When you put it like that, it sounds terrible. It is terrible. Owen made his choices. Now he has to live with the consequences. Just like I have to live with mine. Just like you have to live with yours. She got out of bed and walked to the window, looking out at the gray morning sky. Sometimes I wonder if you've really forgiven me, or if you're just waiting for me to prove that I haven't changed. What's that supposed to mean? It means every time I show any concern for Owen, you act like it's evidence that I'm still in love with him. Are you? No. But I'm also not going to pretend he never mattered to me. I'm not asking you to pretend anything. I'm asking you to prioritize our marriage over his problems. And if I don't, then maybe we don't have a marriage worth saving. It was a harsh thing to say, but it was also true. If Jessa was willing to risk our financial security to help the man she'd been cheating with, then she hadn't really chosen me at all. She turned away from the window. I won't lend him the money. Because you don't want to, or because I don't want you to? Does it matter? It matters to me. Because I don't want to risk our marriage. Because I've already made enough mistakes. It wasn't the answer I'd hoped for, but it was the right answer. Jessa was learning to make practical decisions instead of emotional ones. My phone buzzed with a text message. Chloe. Owen's getting desperate. Expect him to escalate. I showed the message to Jessa. Who's Chloe? She asked. Owen's wife. Why is she texting you? Because we've been talking, comparing notes, trying to figure out how to handle this situation. You've been talking to Owen's wife? Is that a problem? I don't know. It feels coordinated. It is coordinated. We're both dealing with the fallout from your affair. It makes sense that we'd communicate. What kind of communication? I could have lied. Could have minimized my relationship with Chloe, made it sound like casual conversation between two betrayed spouses. Instead, I decided to tell her the truth. The kind where we share information and plan strategy. Strategy for what? For making sure both of you understand that actions have consequences. Jessa stared at me. You've been working with her against us. I've been working with her to protect our interests. By destroying Owen? Owen destroyed himself. We're just making sure he doesn't take anyone else down with him. Anyone else like who? Like you, like me, like our marriage. Our marriage? Jared, what exactly have you and Chloe been planning? I looked at my wife, really looked at her. Still beautiful. Still the woman I'd married. Still someone who was just beginning to understand how completely she'd underestimated the situation. We've been planning to win, I said. Before she could respond, my phone rang. Chloe. Good morning, I answered. Owen just left his house. Oh, he's driving toward your neighborhood? How do you know? GPS tracker on his car. I've been monitoring his movements since the divorce papers were filed. That's probably illegal. It's my car too, community property. I looked out the window. Sure enough, Owen's Tesla was pulling into our driveway. He's here, I told Chloe. Perfect. Let him make his case. Let Jessa see how desperate he is. Then remind her that desperate men make dangerous choices. And then? Then we end this. Owen was already at the front door, pounding like he was trying to break it down. I have to go, I told Chloe. Remember, you're in control here. Don't let him forget that. I hung up and looked at Jessa. Your ex-boyfriend is at our door. I can hear that. What do you want to do? I don't know. Well, you better decide fast, because he's not going away. The pounding got louder, more insistent. Jessa, Owen shouted through the door. I know you're in there. We need to talk. She closed her eyes. This is really happening. This has been happening for months. You're just seeing it clearly for the first time. The pounding stopped. For a moment, I thought Owen had given up and left. Then we heard the sound of breaking glass from the back of the house. He's breaking in, Jessa whispered. No, I said, pulling out my phone to call the police. He's making the biggest mistake of his life. And as Owen's voice echoed through our house, calling Jessa's name like a man who'd lost everything and had nothing left to lose, I realized that Chloe had been right about one thing. Desperate men do make dangerous choices. The question was whether Jessa was finally ready to see Owen for what he really was. Based on the look of terror on her face, I thought she might be getting there.